Welcome to Lorn Sleepy Crescent Moon. Tonight's story is The Turtle of Slow Time, a gentle, peaceful tale from the Garden of Stillness series. Follow Luma as she meets an ancient turtle who teaches her the beauty of slowing down, listening deeply, and finding peace in the present moment. Episode 1. The First Step into Silence. There was once a quiet garden hidden deep in a valley where the wind spoke gently, the leaves barely moved, and time seemed to slow down. This was not an ordinary garden. It was the Garden of Stillness, a place where anyone who entered could hear the soft voice of peace. A young girl named Luma came to this garden one day. She had been walking for a long time, carrying with her a heart full of thoughts and a head full of worries. She didn't know what she was searching for, only that something inside her wished for calm. As she stepped past the old wooden gate, the garden welcomed her, not with sound, but with silence. Birds were resting on the trees. The air smelled of wild herbs and warm soil. A rabbit sitting beneath a fern looked up at her and blinked slowly, as if to say, "You are safe here." Luma sat on a round, smooth stone near a pond. The water was still. A single lotus floated in the middle, untouched. She listened, and in that silence, something beautiful happened. She noticed her breath, in and out, in and out. She had never really paid attention to it before. It felt like a whisper inside her chest, gentle, alive, kind. As she watched the ripples on the pond, she heard the wind moving through tall grasses behind her. Not rushing, not loud, just a soft say-che-che-che-che, like the garden was telling her, "You can rest now." And so she did. She lay down on a bed of moss, closed her eyes, and let her thoughts float away like clouds. Some were heavy, some were strange, but all of them passed slowly without needing to be held. The sun shifted in the sky, and shadows danced softly on the ground. Then a small voice, calm and clear, came from beside her. "You are learning to listen," it said. She opened her eyes. It was the rabbit, sitting quietly, paws folded, eyes kind. "What do you mean?" she asked, surprised but unafraid. To listen without needing to fix. to feel without needing to flee. That is the beginning of stillness, said the rabbit. And Luma smiled because she understood, not with her head, but with her heart. Episode 2: The Whispering Tree. Luma stayed in the garden, not for an hour, not for a day, but for as long as her heart needed. Each morning, the light would drift gently across the grass, and she would wake to the sound of nothing. Not silence that felt empty, but silence that felt full, full of possibility, full of peace. The rabbit, who never told her its name, became her companion. It didn't talk much. Sometimes it just sat with her, breathing, watching, being. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the tops of the trees, the rabbit said, "Today, you will meet the whispering tree." Luma tilted her head. "What does it whisper?" The rabbit blinked slowly. "Whatever your heart needs to hear." They walked together slowly through a path made of soft earth and fallen petals. The trees grew taller here, older. They stood like quiet guardians, each one with a trunk wide enough to hold a small house inside. Their roots were like arms, resting in the soil. Their leaves shimmered gently, as if breathing with the sky. And there, at the center of a circle of trees, stood the whispering tree. It was vast, with a trunk as wide as a room, and its bark was smooth and pale. Vines wrapped gently around it, and from its branches hung tiny bells made of leaf and light. But no wind moved them. "Sit at its roots," the rabbit said, "and close your eyes." Luma obeyed. She pressed her back to the tree and folded her hands in her lap. She closed her eyes and listened. At first, there was only stillness. Then, softly, as if inside her own heart, she heard a voice. It wasn't loud. It didn't use words she knew, but somehow she understood. "You are not lost," the tree whispered. "You are simply returning." The words felt like warmth inside her chest. They melted something tight, something tangled. And for the first time in a long time, Luma didn't feel like she had to do anything at all. Not solve, not change, just be. The voice continued, Be like the sky. Let your thoughts pass like clouds. Hold nothing. Watch everything. And know you are already whole. A single leaf floated down and landed in Luma's lap. It shimmered as if made of quiet light. When she opened her eyes, the rabbit was still sitting there, watching her with kindness. "I think I understand," Luma whispered. The rabbit nodded. "Then the garden has begun its work."
Episode 3: The Pond of Reflection. Days passed, but in the Garden of Stillness, days did not hurry. Time moved like mist, quiet, slow, and soft. Luma spent her time walking barefoot along the mossy paths, listening to the breath of the garden. The garden did not speak in words, but in feelings. Warm light, cool shadows, the hush of petals falling. One morning, the rabbit returned to her with a message. It is time to visit the pond of reflection. Luma stood up. What will I see? The rabbit tilted its head. Not what you expect, but exactly what you need. They walked in silence. The path curved gently downhill between tall grasses and low ferns. Birds fluttered in the trees, not chirping but humming, a sound like wind chimes in the distance. Then, in a clearing filled with soft golden light, they reached the pond of reflection. It was round and still, like a polished mirror placed upon the earth. Not a ripple moved. Trees stood all around it, leaning slightly inward, as if watching over it with love. Luma sat at the edge, knees tucked beneath her. "Look," the rabbit said softly. She leaned forward. At first, she saw only her face, her eyes, her nose, her hair. But as she looked deeper, something began to shift. She saw not just her reflection, but her feelings. She saw herself when she had been scared, when she had cried in secret, when she had felt small and not enough. But she also saw moments of quiet bravery, times she had comforted someone, times she had waited even when she was hurting. All of it was there. Luma blinked. "Why am I seeing this?" The rabbit whispered. "Because everything you are is welcome here, even the parts you hide." Tears filled her eyes. but they didn't fall. They simply sat there, quietly shining. The pond rippled once, just once, and then stilled again. And in that ripple, Luma saw her heart not as broken, but open, like a flower slowly unfolding, petal by petal, not needing to rush. The rabbit came to her side. "You do not need to be perfect," it said. "You only need to be present." Luma placed her hand on her chest and breathed in slowly, in and out, and the pond, still and kind, reflected it all.
Episode 4: The Night of Listening Stars. That evening, the sky turned soft and wide. Shadows stretched gently across the garden as the sun dipped below the hills, and the hush of twilight wrapped the trees like a blanket. Luma lay beneath a tall tree with branches like arms stretching toward the sky. The rabbit was beside her, watching the horizon as the first stars began to appear. 1, then 3, then many. The stars here were not like the ones she had seen before. They twinkled slowly, not fast. And they didn't feel far away. They felt close, like tiny voices waiting to be heard. The rabbit spoke. "Tonight, the stars are listening." Luma turned her head. "Listening to what?" "To the thoughts you haven't spoken, to the questions you carry." Luma grew quiet. She stared up at the deepening sky. Do the stars answer? The rabbit's ears twitched. They do, but only in stillness. So Luma breathed, in and out. She let the air move gently through her. She let the thoughts come, some strange, some tender. Am I enough? Will I always feel this way? Is it okay not to know where I'm going? She didn't say these questions out loud. She simply let them rise, like lanterns, floating toward the stars. The wind stilled. The trees quieted. The garden held its breath. And then, softly, the stars answered, not in words, but in feeling. Warmth touched her heart. A deep, silent knowing filled her. You are not alone. You are becoming. You are already the sky. You do not need to chase the stars. They are within you. Luma felt tears again, not from sadness, but from peace. The kind that comes when you remember something you forgot long ago. Something simple and true. She looked at the rabbit, who was watching the sky too. "They're beautiful," she whispered. "Yes," the rabbit replied. "And so are you, when you are still enough to see yourself." They lay there long into the night, wrapped in silence, under the soft gaze of listening stars. And for the first time in a very long while, Luma didn't wish to be anywhere else. Episode 5: The Chamber of Kind Echoes. The next morning, the garden glowed with gentle mist. Dew clung to leaves like tiny pearls, and the world felt hushed, as if it had just woken from a peaceful dream. Luma wandered slowly along a winding path, guided by no plan, only feeling. The rabbit walked beside her. Neither of them spoke. After a while, they reached a stone archway almost hidden beneath flowering vines. The air around it felt different, softer, like a whisper. "What is this place?" Luma asked. The rabbit looked up. "This is the Chamber of Kind Echoes. It holds the words you've forgotten to say to yourself." Luma stepped through the archway. The ground beneath her feet turned smooth, like polished stone warmed by sunlight. The chamber opened into a quiet cave carved gently into the hillside. There were no walls, only curves, like the inside of a seashell. She walked to the center and sat cross-legged on a smooth stone. At first, there was silence. Then, slowly, a sound began to rise. Not loud, not far, but near. A voice. Her own voice. Soft and kind. "You are doing your best. It's okay to rest. You are allowed to be gentle with yourself. You are already enough." Luma blinked. These were words she had never spoken aloud, but they felt true. They echoed in the chamber, not sharply, but like a hug that came back again and again. She closed her eyes. More echoes came. "You've carried so much. You may set it down now. You are growing, even in stillness. Peace is not something you earn. It is something you remember." Luma let the words wash over her. They felt like sunlight on skin, like warm tea in cold hands. A kind of healing that didn't fix, but simply loved. When the echoes faded, she opened her eyes. The rabbit was there, watching quietly. I didn't know I needed to hear those things, Luma whispered. Most people don't, the rabbit replied, until they do. Luma stood slowly. She felt lighter, not because she had changed, but because she had remembered something simple. She was allowed to be kind to herself. They stepped back into the garden. The mist had lifted. The world was still soft, still calm, but Luma felt just a little stronger. Not loud strong, not fast strong, quiet strong, the kind that stays.
Episode 6. The Turtle of Slow Time. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long golden beams across the garden paths. Everything shimmered gently, like the earth itself was breathing. Luma walked alone now, slowly, not because she was tired, but because she had learned that slow was not the same as lost. The rabbit had told her earlier, when the time is right, you will meet the one who moves even more slowly than the stars. Luma followed a small stream, listening to its trickling laughter. She crossed over stones, paused to smell the leaves, and let her fingers trail through the tall grasses. Eventually, she reached a quiet grove, where the air felt thick with stillness. There, beneath a large willow tree, lay a great turtle, ancient and gentle, its eyes like polished stones that had seen 1,000 quiet seasons. Luma approached and sat nearby without speaking. The turtle blinked once, slowly, then said in a deep, soft voice, "Why do you hurry, little one?" Luma tilted her head. "I don't know. I used to think I had to catch up, to keep up, to be enough." The turtle shifted slightly, its shell making a quiet sound like wind through old wood. Everything important takes time. A seed becomes a tree slowly. A wound becomes a scar slowly. Peace arrives slowly. Luma closed her eyes. She listened to the turtle's breath. Slow, deep, steady. She matched it with her own. In and out, like the tide, like the trees, like life itself. The turtle continued. The world rushes, but your heart does not need to. Sit long enough, and you will hear what the rushing drowns. So Luma sat, not for a moment, not for a minute, but until she no longer felt the need to check the time. The turtle whispered again, "The moon does not rush to become full, and neither must you." A breeze moved through the willow leaves, slow and musical. Luma looked at the turtle, who now had closed its eyes in peaceful rest. She smiled, and she knew, without needing to explain, that some of the most powerful things in life happen softly and slowly